And one of the things I wanted to mention too about kind of the whole American dream and immigrant hustle. One of the defining moments I remember in my life, my grandfather was sick. He had, I think it was prostate cancer in Ukraine still. And there was a surgery at the time that we could have gotten for him. If I think it cost like 79 or 89,000, something like that. And we did not have the money to do that. And I remember like, man, I never want to be in this position where life I can save, and I just felt so powerless at that moment.
Yeah.
And in the Soviet Union back, even today, like you get in line and if they don't call your number, you're just dead. There's no like, well, this guy's really dying, let's help him, like here in the US. So I just remember like feeling so powerless and, coming home that night, I was coming from a club, I was all drunk and I come home and my mom's sitting there on the couch crying. And that's when like I realized like, what the hell am I doing with my life? Going out every weekend and drinking and like I could be saving this man's life. So, and that was it. I mean, as soon as I got here, I called every successful real estate agent in town. I met with the mayor. I met with everybody at City Hall. I met with all the top builders. I told them, I'm coming to town, and this is what's going to happen. Like within 2 months, I had a meeting at High Cotton, which is not there anymore. Right. I had all the top agents there, the mayor, all the top builders. And I told them what my plan was for Greenville, and I wanted them to be part of it. Most of them laughed at it. But, here I am today, #1 in town, so.
Our vow and our philosophy. The sales wolves hustle hard, it's our policy. We create economies, crushing anomalies. Came in this world to dominate with no apologies. Gotta get it till the day that we cease to breathe. Sales wolves got the tools that you know you need. Real lessons, confessions of what it really means. To go from nothing to something and everything between. Married in the game and we took vows. Gonna get it poppin', yeah, when you hear them wolves howl. When you hear them wolves howl. Yeah, when you hear them wolves.
All right, guys, welcome to episode 34 of the Sales Wolves podcast. I am Tyler Harris.
Joseph Caldwell.
Stan Gendlin.
And we are the Sales Wolves.
It's always fun when we can get a guest to howl with us.
Yes. How are you?
How are you? How the hell are you doing?
Okay. So, episode 34. Today we obviously have a special guest, Stan Gendlin, and we're going to hear a little bit about his story. But the overall theme and topic of this podcast is just hustle and sales, and what does that look like in various different industries, Stan being in the real estate market, us being in insurance, and we've had a lot of people reach out to us that are in the insurance world, or the real estate world, sorry, with questions, and there's a lot of people that, I feel like there's more real estate agents, realtors, than ever lately. Like every friend that I ever had is now also a realtor. It's just, I guess, because the housing market is so crazy right now.
Well, that's
Easy
like,
to get your license.
Yeah, true.
It's just like about 10 years ago when you would ask somebody what they did, and they're like, well, I deliver pizzas full time, but I'm a mortgage broker on the side. Everybody was a mortgage broker. Right. Every single person, because, you had stated loans. And I remember I did a stated loan one time. They asked me what's right. I told them, and they gave me a loan. I was like, this cannot go on forever, but thank you, God.
And so with that, with all these people getting into real estate, it's important to figure out what does it take to actually make something happen. A lot of people get into it, and good or bad intentions as far as what they're going to actually do with it, is if it's going to be an actual career. But to see someone that's taken it and just absolutely ran with it and has blown me away. I'll tell really quick the story of how Stan and I met. So I'm doing all this crazy stuff on Facebook Lives at all hours of the night.
And then he's dancing at this club, a part of the time, and
just fist pumping. And
Stan owns the club because he's Russian. Aren't you Russian?
That's right.
It's not exactly how it happened. It's similar.
All right, keep going.
But no, just out of the blue, I remember I got this Facebook message, and it was just one sentence, a question. It was it was just this one sentence, and he said, "I didn't know people hustle like that in Greenville." And I was like, huh. I'm like, we need to meet up for coffee. And so we did. We met up for coffee. And what he meant by that was that he had just moved into town not that long before. And just talking about, like, when you go out and you meet other people, he's like, all people want to do around here is talk about Clemson football and different things. Like, nobody wants to talk about business. And so I thought that was so cool that we had that instant connection. And so I had always been interested in real estate, and but never had any real experience in it. Sure. And so I just wanted to learn as much as I could, as fast as I could from Stan, and was just blown away by the level of hustle and proactive hustle, which I think that's the problem. I think a lot of realtors are so reactive. Like, when somebody calls me, that's great, right, and we'll go take them on a tour, and we'll go do this, we'll go do that. But being proactive, that's the definition of hustle.
And I know we're talking about real estate, but that holds true
everything
across every single industry. One of our company values here is responsibility, right? And so we talk about taking responsibility for yourself, for your family, and then business and that kind of thing. But the flip side of that is the lack of personal responsibility and accountability is it's catastrophic in this country right now. And so all you have to do is take a massive personal responsibility and action, and you stand so head and shoulders above everybody else. It's not even a fair game, is it?
Right. No, man. That's actually part of the reason I recently got a personal trainer. And he asked me what time I want to meet. I'm like, what's the earliest we can meet? Like, gym opens at 5. I'm there at 5. Now, I don't want to be there at 5. I want to sleep in, but right, the level of discipline that builds by doing those things that, you don't want to do, but you're done by 6, and, I'm ready to go by the time people are still sleeping or barely waking up, and I'm already getting all this kind of stuff done.
Absolutely.
So, exactly. That's the reason I did it. You just got to take that personal responsibility and do the things you don't want to do, and then you'll get the things that other people can't have.
Exactly.
I heard someone the other day, maybe it was Andy Frisella, was talking about being able to do things that you necessarily don't feel like doing, but still be able to execute them at a high level is the number one key to success. When you don't feel like doing it, or when you just don't like whatever you're doing, but you're still able to perform at a high level in doing it.
Oh yeah.
That it's not just when he said, because he talks about do it anyway all the time. It's not just do it anyway. It's being able to do it anyway at a high level.
That's right.
Which is very interesting. So wanted to bring Stan on. We've been trying to bring him on for, I don't know, a couple of months. I'm like, hey, can you be on the podcast Friday? He's like, I'm in New York. I'm like, hey, can you be on the podcast? I'm in San Diego. I'm like, hey, you're on the podcast. I'm in Egypt. I'm like, what? which literally happened one time. And so we wanted to bring him on and just to tell his story.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite places too. Where'd you go?
Actually, it was Israel and Jordan, but...
Oh, you went to Israel?
Oh, you didn't go to Egypt?
No.
Okay.
So that was a lie.
I've never been to Israel and Jordan. I want to do that. I want to go to Petra. And
Awesome.
Did you go there?
Awesome, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's a cool experience.
Yeah.
I bet.
That's awesome. I was close because we went all the way down to Abu Simbel, which is through the desert there, all the way at they call it Upper Egypt, but it's at the southernmost tip. That's where the quarries were that they mined the stone and then sent it 600 miles away.
Yep.
Fascinating there too. Unbelievable. But we'll have to sit and talk sometime about
Please.
that. That's cool.
That'd be awesome.
But I want to hear a story.
Yeah.
I want to hear where he's from.
And Gary Vaynerchuk, he always talks about that immigrant hustle.
That's right.
And I'm intrigued by that because of the lack of hustle in Americans. I'm intrigued by those that come over here and just absolutely just crush. And there's something real behind that. And I think there's something a lot of people can take from that as far as the mentality as to why that happens. But yeah, we'd love for you to just kind of tell your story and let us know kind of where you're from, what you've done up until now, and feel free to take as much time as you want. It's no rush. So
as long as it's not too long.
Yeah. I was born in 80. I was born in 84 in the Soviet Union. That's what it was at the time.
Formerly known as
Ukraine. And then my parents my father was Jewish, my mother was a ethnic Russian, and there was a lot of anti-Semitism in the Soviet Union at the time.
Sure.
And because of that, the president at the time, Reagan, signed a policy to allow a lot of Eastern Europeans to come to the U.S., if they had skills and were educated. So we, through that refugee program, got a visa to come to the States. And we first lived in Vienna. That was our first stop out of the Soviet Union. Lived there for a couple months. Then we went to Italy, in Rome. And a lot of people at the time, because they were Jewish, part of the program is Israel wanted to take a lot of people too. So they made it very difficult for people to come to America. Yeah. So we ended up living in a refugee camp for a while.
And how old were you during this?
Where was the refugee camp?
It was somewhere, I don't know, somewhere outside of Rome.
Gotcha.
I was about 5 at the time.
Okay.
Do you remember it at all?
No, not at all. And like my parents told us, like we were going to this refugee camp and there was a bomb threat. And so like we had to jump off this moving train because they didn't want to stop the train. So I don't remember any of this, but yeah,
That may be why you may have like hit your head or something.
It was yeah. So my mom my father jumped first, and my mom basically threw me to my father, and then she jumped. It was going like 5 miles an hour, but still moving. So at that point, we got the visa to come to the States, and we ended up in Brighton Beach in Brooklyn, New York, where everyone from Eastern Europe went. And
so it was like being home again.
That's right. That's right. So yeah, I couldn't speak any English. I remember first day of kindergarten, I went to school. The only thing my parents taught me how to say was, "Can I use the bathroom, please?" That was the essential thing to know. So, because awesome. I couldn't speak any English.
Still speak Russian?
Oh, fluently, yeah. So I grew up in Brooklyn until I was about 12 years old. Then we moved to Jersey, the suburbs, better schools, better opportunities. Like most people, we moved there. And basically from there, I ended up going to the Marines towards the end of high school. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And then when 9/11 happened, I went to the recruiting station the next day and signed up. It was kind of clear at that point that that's something I wanted to do.
Infantry?
My parents wouldn't let me because I was 17 at the time. So my recruiter had me lie to them, saying I was doing satellite communications, which I was really an infantry guy with a radio. So
that's awesome.
Got it.
Yeah. So went through that whole experience. After that, went to Rutgers University, which is a state school in Jersey, big school. Really wasted a lot of time. Spent 5.5 years getting my 4-year degree. Just really wasted a lot of time, not knowing what I want to do. And then after
Rutgers has a mean ass rugby team, don't they?
Yeah.
We played them in a tournament one time, and that was a hard game.
Yeah, a lot of big guys there. After Rutgers, I got my degree in communication, which most people know in college is kind of a waste of a degree because it's easy. You get good grades. You can maybe go to good, school after.
You know that a communications degree, while you say it's a waste of a degree, it's like all the other degrees. So are they.
Well, yeah.
As far as making money.
So I got this degree.
Yeah, but you can get you know what happens with a doctor that's a C, they still call you a doctor.
That's right.
You can almost fail out and still be a doctor.
Getting this degree, spending, I forgot how much money my parents spent, but I got out of college with this degree and got my first job in a PR firm that paid $7.75 an hour, which is probably less than if I didn't even go to college.
Be less than if you had. I mean, that's
it was very disheartening to go through school and get a minimum wage job with a degree. So one of my friends who I went to the Marines with, 2009.
How long were you in the Marines?
It was a reserve program, so it was just a weekend.
Okay.
Yeah. So one of my buddies that I met in boot camp, he was flipping houses, hustling in Trenton, New Jersey, which is the capital.
Yep.
And this guy who's 1 year older than me, I was 24 at the time, he was 25 or 25 and 26. He's like, I'm making, 15, 20 grand a month flipping houses. He's like, I need you to come help me grow my business. I know you're in marketing, which I wasn't, but I'm like, I'm making $7.75 an hour. This kid's almost my age making 20 grand a month. That was unbelievable to me at the time. So first, I thought he was selling me some sort of late night TV scam, flipping houses. You can't make money doing that. So I went and saw what he was doing, and this guy was legit making this kind of money. Like, I couldn't believe this lifestyle he was living at this young age and doing everything legally, So I came into work on Monday. I quit and went to work for this guy for $10 an hour. He said, I'll pay for 12 hours a week. And I was there 60 hours a week, learning as much as I could, get only paid for 12. Because I realized what the potential was.
Oh, yeah.
So after about 2.5 years, they made me a partner with them out there. And then I'm sorry, about a year and a half. And then 2.5 years in, I felt like we kind of hit a ceiling. I think my ambitions were a lot higher than what theirs were at the time. So I got recruited by this large investment company in San Diego. So I basically gave up my partnership there, moved out to San Diego. They told me, we're not sure what you're going to do, what we're going to pay you, but there's some sort of opportunity here. So, told my parents I'm going to move out there in 45 days, kind of left everything I had, friends, family, moved to San Diego. And same thing, I got there thinking, hey, this big company is going to put me in this position, and I'm just going to, start using their systems, making all this money. And when I got there, I realized they had no systems. Like they had nothing set up for me to do. I had to create it, like everything. So I basically worked my butt off 7 days a week in this office, 12, 14-hour days, every day, 7 days a week. It took me about 6 months to figure out what the hell I was doing.
Yeah.
Completely ran out of money, and then just really took off. And we started crushing the San Diego market. And like I said, that was one of my biggest goals for the first 3 years, was just to make 10 grand in 1 month. And then like from that point on, I mean, it was 30, 35 a month, like consistently. I was blowing my mind. And then
I was blowing my mind.
Is that weird to say?
No, I do that every day. I just thought I was the only one.
So another like 2.5 years there, and
I've
same.
really outdone myself.
Exactly.
I've really outdone myself. Well, when you compete with only yourself and all you do is dominate in an industry, that's what happens. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only person you really got to beat every day is yourself. So,
That's it.
again, 2.5 years in San Diego, felt like I was hitting a ceiling, but I was so comfortable at this job making all this money. And a lot of people are at their jobs when they're doing relatively well.
Yeah.
That's when I met my current wife, my only wife. I love you, baby.
My current wife. You gotta be careful when
I
you
know.
say my current wife.
The only wife I've ever had and will have.
That's when I met the current love of my life. Sorry, baby.
The first love of my life.
So she basically saw that I had a lot more potential, and I was really miserable deep down inside because I wanted to do a lot more. And she really encouraged me to go out on my own. And she was really passionate about real estate. So we decided to start a business together, and we found Greenville, South Carolina, just because there were tons of jobs coming to the area. So we knew that means real estate growth.
Sure.
So we moved to Greenville, South Carolina in 2014. I had about 150 to 200 grand saved up at the time. Was buying too many nice toys in San Diego. That's a big mistake when you first start making money.
Big mistake.
Blowing it on
Everybody does it
I
when
know.
they first start making money.
yeah. So 3 months in, we bought a lot of houses to start flipping here, and we realized that I didn't pay attention at all to anything, any other division in our business in San Diego except how to buy houses. I didn't know how to run a business, rehab houses. So I bought way too many, and within 3 months, I went from having $200,000 in the bank to $1,500. So I completely ran out of money. And I'm like, this was a huge mistake. I was making 30, 35 grand a month, and now I'm broke. Like, how the heck did that happen?
And you got a bunch of inventory.
I got it, yeah.
Was it fixed up yet or no?
No.
Oh,
No.
no.
So, yeah, I maxed out my credit cards, my business lines of credit I had at the time. And luckily, I bought them all right, so we made a lot of money on them, and we got through it. But that was probably the toughest time because we just got married. A week after we got married or came back from our honeymoon, we came here and started the business. Yeah. And we had no friends or family here, so that was very difficult.
Sure.
But we worked through it, and I feel like that made us a power couple going through that experience.
Sure.
And now 3 years later, we have a good team. We're doing 100+ transactions here in Greenville, doing several subdivisions. We're buying office buildings, so we've really just blown up our business. And it was basically just waking up at 3 a.m., going to sleep at 10, 12, and putting in those long days is the only way to get it done. So that's kind of how I got here today.
Yeah.
You know what's funny, man? One of the things you hear of people doing that, and they talk about the hustle, but you rarely meet somebody that actually does hustle. And you were talking about the immigrant hustle that they talk about. And the funny thing is, if you look at the statistics, it's not because an immigrant is smarter or has a leg up on a natural born citizen in America, but they are 11 times more likely to be a millionaire, which he is, 11 times more likely to be a millionaire than somebody born here. Does that blow your mind?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, like my perspective on that is a lot of immigrants, especially that came from Eastern Europe, like the idea of owning a business or real estate or rentals, that just didn't exist.
Because you can't.
You can't.
You cannot.
Yeah,
Talk about that for a second, because most people that hear this were born into it and they don't understand. Hey,
Yeah.
I get it, man. We pay a lot in taxes and we do. I was talking to an older businessman. He's a mentor of mine, Roger. I love him. And I was whining a little bit about the taxes I pay, and he goes, "Well, they don't take it all yet."
That's right.
And here's the thing: you lived in a country where they take it all.
Yeah.
You lived in a system where there's not opportunity to do that. So talk about that for a second, because a lot of people don't understand what that looks like.
Yeah, well, I just remember my parents telling me, you know, my mom and dad did 2 completely separate jobs, and they would get paid the exact same thing as everyone else there, because it was all based on how long you've been there. It doesn't matter how hard you work. It was just, this is what you make every single month.
There's no incentive in that, right?
Right.
When you take away the profit motive, I want people to hear that. When you take away the profit motive, it takes all incentive to be better and to promote the business or to move further down the road. It takes all of that away.
Yeah, so you'd be hard pressed to find people that grew up in that system that come here and be like, I want more government, more,
Yeah.
you know, because they've been through
God,
that.
I wish they'd control shit more in this country.
Yeah, because they saw how it was ran. It was a disaster.
Yeah.
And so when my parents talked about the American dream, getting out of college, and they didn't teach me anything about entrepreneurship because they didn't know.
Because they didn't know.
Yeah. So I'm thinking like, American dream is not getting out of college, getting a job and working for 40 years and retiring on next to nothing. Like, it just didn't make sense to me. And I realized the American dream was you're able to have a business, own real estate. Just the concept of people going to work every day to pay you to live in your house, and then you make money off that. Like, that was just a mind-blowing concept that did not exist. Everything was government owned. You know, you lived for free there, but you were assigned a little apartment with like 1 million people in there. You all shared one bathroom. So these concepts of, you know, being able to work hard and get places and get things was just mind-blowing to a lot of people that came here. I think that's why a lot of them do so well.
Yeah.
And again, it's not because they're
Because
smarter.
they see it and they
right.
understand the opportunity because
Right.
they've been on the other side of the fence.
That's right.
So
And that's
They don't take it for granted.
exactly like you guys are saying. People born here just, you know, don't understand. Like, that's something you can't take for granted. A lot of people don't have that opportunity. So if you can, I mean, this country affords you to do pretty much anything you want. You guys know it too. I mean, you're living proof of it too. And I think that's where the immigrant hustle comes from that Gary Vee talks about. It has nothing to do with being smart, or it's just that understanding that opportunity is there and coming from
It's
a place
almost like
where it's
having a little
not.
chip on your shoulder.
Yeah.
Of like, hey, I'm here and I'm going to make something happen because the opportunity is so great. And again, I mean, you say it again, not taking things for granted. That just seems like another thing I heard recently is they're talking about how in other countries failure is like a scarlet letter. Like if you start a business and you fail, like you're done. Like you'll never be able to do anything again. And that being in America, you can fail and then go and start another business and then
failure's
crush it.
nothing but learning.
Exactly, but it's not that way everywhere. And so there's just so many opportunities. So as it pertains to real estate and talking about it, because we do have a lot of realtors or people that are in real estate that watch or listen, what are some of those keys to your success as you look back? Those times where you felt like, okay, crap, I'm over leveraged and I've got to make something happen. What were those, other than just the pillars of hard work and that? Like, what did that hustle really tangibly like look like?
I mean, the number one thing I did was probably just get on the phones and make endless amounts of cold calls looking for opportunities to turn into money. And that's how a lot of realtors I know here in town that are crushing it too do the same thing. They'll get on Craigslist and there's 1 million people trying to sell their own house, and a lot of them are not doing a good job at it. And you just call 200 people every single morning. There's no way you will not be successful. Just something that simple. I know a couple of people, that's how they started from zero to making, you know, multiple 6 figures in their first year in real estate. And all they did was make cold calls every morning. You know, discipline, 200 calls every day. You're going to get, you know, 198 rejections, but those 2 are going to equal to $20,000 for just those 2 people that say yes.
So it's basically it's just being willing to do what every other person's not.
Right.
I mean, because no one's going to wake up and call.
How many realtors do you think make 200 calls a month?
Yeah,
A
probably.
month. I bet there's not 1%. I bet 1% of them don't even make that many a month. You're talking about a day.
That's right.
And one thing that I've been so impressed with is in the short period of time that you've been here, the way you've networked, especially with high net worth individuals, but the way you've met with and formed relationships. It seems
He's
like,
referring to himself.
I mean, the way you just sought me out. And,
That's right.
no, but really, like,
The way you weaseled your way in to meet with me.
no, that's not what I meant.
I know, man. I'm messing with you.
But some of the relationships that you've built and things that you've been able to do with having all the opportunities that you have and needing people, talk a little bit about that as far as the networking and just being able to build, rapport and relationships with people, not knowing anyone. Yeah, I mean, literally, he like Google searched like hot real estate markets and Greenville popped up. Like that was the only reason, which is it's insane to me, that level of commitment or risk and to take. So talk about that, like coming here knowing no one. Yeah.
When you know that you'll outwork everybody else, it's not even a risk. Brett didn't even feel like a risk until he got really over leveraged, and then he was second guessing himself, and he knew he had to work his ass out of it. I mean, that's just. But a lot of times, an entrepreneur will subconsciously put their own back against the wall and force themselves to fight their way out.
Oh, I love being in that position.
I've done it to myself 100 times, and every time I think, why the hell am I doing this again? And then once I get my way out of it, and all the glory comes from it, all the money comes from it, and then I'm like, see, that's why I did it.
Oh, yeah.
But you'll paint yourself into a corner.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many mornings where I wake up and I'm like, I don't really have to do anything today. And I'm so uncomfortable being comfortable. I hate being in that position where, like, I don't have to work ever again at this point. But it feels so weird waking up in the morning and being so comfortable. It makes me feel weird. And as far as you talk about networking, I just realized early on that successful people want to be surrounded and know other successful people. So if you reach out to someone you don't know and you show them you have that passion and drive, most of them are going to open up to you and help you and network with you. And that was it. I mean, as soon as I got here, I called every successful real estate agent in town. I met with the mayor. I met with everybody at City Hall. I met with all the top builders. I told them, I'm coming to town and this is what's going to happen. Like within 2 months, I had a meeting at High Cotton, which is not there anymore. Right. I had all the top agents there, the mayor, all the top builders. And I told them what my plan was for Greenville, and I wanted them to be part of it. Most of them laughed at it. But, here I am today, #1 in town, so.
That's incredible.
Yeah. That's what, hey, when I first told people about us doing 100,000 applications in the market life insurance applications in the market that we operate in. When I first told people about that, you know how many we were doing? We were only doing 2,500 a year. I first started telling people this is where we're going, and we were only doing 2,500 in South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia. Those are the only 3 states, and mostly just in South Carolina. And because people laughed at it, people were like, "Oh, that's not gonna work." That next year was 8,500. People still laughed. That next year it was 30,000. People stopped laughing, right? Because they stopped along the way, and then it becomes their idea. They're like, "God, we knew you were going to do it, man.
Yeah, of course,
we're in your corner,
of course."
And but that's what happens. That's what everybody goes through that. So it's funny that you say that.
Yeah, and one of the things I wanted to mention too about kind of the whole American dream and immigrant hustle. One of the defining moments I remember in my life. My grandfather was sick. He had, I think it was prostate cancer. And there was this was before.
Living here or in Russia?
In Ukraine still.
Ukraine, yeah.
And there was a surgery at the time that we could have gotten for him I think it cost like 79 or 89,000, something like that. And we did not have the money to do that. And I remember like, man, I never want to be in this position where life I can save, and I just felt so powerless at that moment. Yeah. And in the Soviet Union back, even today, like you get in line and if they don't call your number, you're just dead. There's no like, well, this guy's really dying, let's help him, like here in the US. So
for those of you who want universal health care, enjoy what he's saying here. This is for you.
So I just remember like feeling so powerless, and coming home that night. I was coming from a club. I was all drunk, and I come home and my mom's sitting there on the couch crying. And that's when like I realized like, what the hell am I doing in my life? Going out every weekend and drinking, and like I could be saving this man's life. So
that's awesome.
And we talk about that of putting yourself in a position where you make decisions based off of what's in your heart and not what's in your pocket.
Yeah.
Because who wouldn't choose to save their own granddad if they had the money? Who wouldn't choose to save a stranger if they had the money?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And that's what we're talking about. When you can put yourself in a position, and we get on here and we talk about making tons of money, but if people only knew the stuff that we do that actually really matters.
Right.
Because that's the legacy you leave.
That's right.
It's not hey, I made a bunch of money in my life, because I'm never going to lay on my deathbed and go, damn, I wish I made one more dollar.
That's right.
I'm not going to do that, but I will lay there and go, God, was there anybody else I could have helped? Was there anybody else? Was there any family member that I could have made a better memory with, that kind of thing. So I'm with you on that. We talk about
like
that all the
one of
time.
our mentors last year was telling us, another way to like just look at hustling and sales and making money, and you basically want to start the year by, instead of saying how much money do I want to make this year, you basically start the year and say how much money do I want to give away this year or donate, and then you say how much do I need to make in order to do that.
That's right.
So it's just a way more powerful why than like I just want to make a couple of million this year. It's not that powerful. Like we're going to Haiti in 2 weeks, and I've been there a couple times now, and it's just such a awesome experience. Awesome experience helping these just amazing kids that have nothing, happiest kids in the world.
Who do you go with?
A bunch of investors from around the country.
Okay.
One of the guys runs an orphanage there. It's called Children First Haiti. Just awesome place. We go and do some manual labor and play with the kids and bring them stuff and educate them so they don't kind of continue the cycle of growing poverty. So
we see that in Nicaragua. We go every year down to Nicaragua. Same thing.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating, isn't it, to be there?
Absolutely.
It's first trip I went on. I was coming back, and hell, I was excited to get out of there. I mean, I'm not kidding. I saw that was the first time, because here you see poverty, but they have opportunity.
Right.
There you see poverty with no opportunity, and that was the first time I saw that. And on the way back, I was with some people, and they were like, "Gosh, I almost feel guilty coming back into all this," and I was like, "Feel guilty? I don't feel guilty, because the only reason we could go is because we can come back here and do what we do. That's the only reason we can go help.
Yeah.
Because you can't. That's why when you're on a plane, you pull that little pamphlet out in the front, and they're smiling, and the plane's going down, and they're all putting oxygen masks on. They always tell you put yours on first before you.
Right.
If I have no oxygen, I cannot help you with oxygen.
Exactly.
And so there's no way you could help the people in Haiti unless you made the decision to become rich.
Yep.
You can't help out of a position of weakness.
Right.
No one can.
Right.
Even Mother Teresa couldn't. She had lots of money. That's how she helped.
Yeah,
She didn't use it for her own benefit.
Right.
She didn't use it for luxuries, like I will. but she did. You have to look at that. But anyway.
It's definitely a great experience for anyone, regardless if you do something in your community or go out of the country, just to kind of ground you and make you realize like how much you really have and just be grateful. And I did feel guilty, and I cried on the way home the first time. It was like leaving those little kids, like happiest kids in the world.
It's tough, isn't it?
It's really tough. Yeah. But we're going back in 2 weeks, and we're bringing a couple other entrepreneurs from Greenville, so that's really exciting, and it's growing and helping more kids, and it's just that's what you could do when you're hustling and making money, and you can do so many good things for so many people.
And what I started doing is I started taking my kids. Do you have any kids?
No, not yet.
All right, so I started taking my children. And so when they hit around 12, I'll take them each year with me. And that is a unique experience. To be a kid who's grown up, like only my firstborn remembers ever not having money. The other three, they have no idea. I mean, they have no idea. They wake up in a 7,000 square foot house and pool and all this other stuff, and they think that's how everybody lives.
Yeah.
It isn't.
Yeah.
And so taking them there and let them see abject poverty and letting them see the kids that are so happy and hug and love on them, man, it is a unique experience because it'll change them for the rest of their lives.
Absolutely.
So, because I think it's my responsibility to raise a generation of me's, except not quite so brass and not quite so.
And I'm happy you're saying it because that's one of the biggest fears I have, not having kids yet, but am I going to, screw them up by giving them too much? Or like my parents, I could see the difference between my sister and I, where she grew up with having things. I grew up with not having much in terms of material things. I had all the important things, love, security, and housing. But I could just see the big difference in her as a millennial and me as a millennial. And I definitely, there's such a thin line between giving them, and you want to give them everything, I'm sure, but making them understand like you gotta earn things, and and this did not come from my parents. Like you guys are hustling your butts off every day to give your kids, what they have. So,
and you won't screw them up, dude. Don't be scared about that.
You can't.
They are resilient. It's almost impossible to mess them up. But as long as you love them with all your heart, man, and as long as you put them in positions and make it okay for them to fail. If you make it okay for them to fail and to learn from their failures, put them in positions where it's okay. Hey, you always got that safety net. You're not going to let them kill themselves.
Right.
But you want them to be able to take those risks, fail, and get up and do it again, learn from it. And then show them what the world's like, and teach them. Because we're here, like I feel in the core of my being that if you live in America, it is your absolute responsibility to be successful. Like you are squandering.
absolutely.
On your deathbed, you will shut your eyes and wake up in the hereafter, and you will realize you squandered every damn thing you were given. And that will be that'll be your own version of hell. That's my version of hell, is to shut my eyes when it's all over and wake up and realize I did not live a life well lived.
Or see the person that lived up to your full potential. Like see you having lived up to what you were capable of.
That's a fact.
And then see yourself and the difference, and that's terrifying.
That's terrifying. Then, and you have people that go, well, money's not the most important thing. I know that, but it affects everything on the top 10, and it ranks right up there next to air, dumbass. That's what I want to tell people, Anyway, I get fired up about that stuff.
So do you want to talk a little bit about kind of your next phase or next steps, or is it too early for that?
World domination, I think, is what this man's plotting.
Well, we realized also at this point in our business that we want to basically have more not such a high stress lifestyle, and to get that we basically need passive income.
Sure.
That's why we're right now focused on growing our commercial division, buying buildings here in town, and doing a lot of the same what we're doing residential. We're fixing them up, we're leasing them out, some we're selling, some we're keeping. So that's kind of where we're going at this point, is to start really building our net worth by acquiring large commercial assets. So I think that's usually the next phase for someone like me. That, and of course, giving back to other people, teaching them how to do what I do, to get themselves out of whatever situation they're in. It's so easy to do in our industry. There's so many people doing it, and really just the difference between the successful people and the not is that just a hustle. It's getting on that phone, and you don't need any money to do it. Just get on that phone, get on Craigslist, get on Zillow, and I mean you can easily make 5 figures in a month, within your first 30 days of doing this.
So what we like to do every now and then when we have a guest on is kind of have them give what their definition would be of a sales wolf. So not to put you completely on the spot.
That's fine.
But what would
he's
you,
used
what
to
would
being
you
on the
say?
spot. Put his ass on the spot.
So what would you say?
likes it.
So what would you say a sales wolf would be?
Sales wolf. I mean, I feel like our acquisition guy, John, he's a good definition of that for me. I mean, he walks into pretty much every appointment he has with someone we're looking to buy with, an agent or a seller, and he knows he's walking out with a contract. I mean, someone that's ready to close every deal and feels confident to close every deal, and is willing to be up at all hours of the day to get those numbers done, to hit the quota or whatever. So I feel like our team does pretty damn well good at that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I haven't watched your podcast too. Pick stuff up every now and then too. So hope you guys are putting it.
As he watches his business. Nah, man, we just try to be real though. That's what people want in this life. They don't want to be sold a bill of goods, and I mean, they
I was
want
watching
real.
a Facebook Live last night, and it was so interesting. So, that video that I sent you where Sean Whalen was driving down the road and he saw JP Sears.
Yeah, man.
You know JP Sears, the guy that does
Yes.
funny
Yeah.
Long hair guy.
Yes.
That dude's hilarious.
The redhead guy?
Yeah. So Sean's driving down the road. They had been on this like 2,000-mile motorcycle ride, and they were driving down the road like near some national forest, like out in the middle of nowhere.
Glacier National Forest.
Was it? And they saw JP Sears just walking down the road in his purple shirt. And they were like, dude, I think that was JP Sears. So they turned around, and lo and behold, it was. And so they pulled over and got out, and Sean just literally like pops up Facebook Live and just starts talking to him. And it's like every one of the videos that you've seen of him, it was like he was just hilarious, and just that sarcastic, dry sense of humor.
But hell, you don't know if he's being serious or not. On that, I was like,
I watched one of his TED Talks, and it's like, it's profound in like the information he puts out there, but it's the whole time you're confused because like every other word you're like, was that sarcastic? Is he being serious? But anyway, so like it was so funny. Sean was like, this is just the way the universe conspires. I'm 2,000 miles from home, and to just see this guy walking the side of the road, and so they connect. So last night they did a Facebook Live together. It was a Be Live deal, and they were just talking about like real stuff. Like it wasn't funny, like none of the regular stuff that JP does, but they were talking about different things like vulnerability being like the key to emotional connection. Sure. And truth. And one thing that just stood out for me was the vulnerability aspect of being able to be real with people and be honest with people. And JP kind of butt in and he goes, what I've found is that withholding is the same as lying. And so there's a lot of people out there, especially on social media, there's a lot of people out there that are telling the truth, but they're only telling 20% of it.
And they're lying.
So they're leaving out 80% of what's not true. They're leaving out 80% of the truth, and that actually is their truth, they're leaving out. So that's just a lie. And talking about the vulnerability of being able to put it all out there.
That is good, man.
Especially with like just one-on-one relationships and being able to connect to other people and being able to use social media as a platform to actually connect. Yeah. The only way you can do that is by being vulnerable and just talking about things the way they actually are, because the last thing the world needs is another person to get on Facebook Live and pretend to be something that they're not. Yeah. And that's been the interesting thing, and that's how we connected, because you probably saw me being somewhat transparent and was like, oh,
You notice his word somewhat.
20% transparent, 80% fake.
Well, that's true. I mean, I know a ton of guys in our industry and related industries, and all their social medias, their Lamborghinis and this and that, and a lot of them are broke, or they're just barely making those payments on their rented cars. So you're right. I mean,
we're gonna rent a Lambo or a Ferrari while we're down in Miami or whatever, but I promise you I'm not taking a picture of it and putting it on social media and saying you can have it
I thought we were going to do the podcast from inside it.
No.
At the rental car place.
At the rental car place. Look, we rented this. We just want you to know.
Can we get one more hour so we can report it?
We don't even rent this on an ongoing basis. We got like an hour. That's why we got to talk fast. But I mean, money will let you experience anything, but I don't want the payment on that thing. So I'll rent it from somebody and play with it and send it back. But I'm damn sure not going to tell you can have one too or something like BS like that. It's ridiculous.
A 4-hour work week and you can have one too.
I got 4 kids. People are going to be like, that's bullshit. You can't even fit your family in this thing. You know what I'm saying?
That's true. Any parting words as we wrap it up here?
Oh, I mean, it was it felt good. I haven't told that story about my grandfather like to anyone besides maybe my wife.
That was emotional for you. I felt it.
Yeah, and so it felt good to be like a little vulnerable on the show, and you know, I think people can see that's realistic.
Yeah.
That's all. Just
People ask all the time what was that defining moment, or what made the switch? Like, okay, you were broke and then you went to this. Like, well, what happened there? And it's so cool to be able to have something that like you distinctly remember. It was like that was the second that everything changed mindset wise, and then actions followed. Because I always kind of struggle with that question, because I'm like, it wasn't like a defined, like I woke up one morning and this happened and I said, from here forward, it wasn't like a clear cut. It was a kind of a transition over period of time. But to be able to have that clear, defined moment, even coming out of a tragic situation, is so it's so profound, and people can get so much out of that. And you are able to just use that, I'm assuming, just to drive you every single day, to never let something like that ever happen again. Which is
and I mean,
awesome.
I don't go back there often mentally.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah.
But I think about it a lot.
Yeah.
And it does drive me a lot, and especially when you get into giving back and philanthropy, and you realize there's so many other people you can help, and it doesn't have to be somebody you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if that's something you're passionate about, that's probably one of the biggest driving factors for so many entrepreneurs across the world, just giving back. If you look at Bill Gates and Richard Branson, I mean, those guys just do so many amazing things for people. So really figuring out what's important to you that will help you make that money. A lot of times it's not going to be the toys, because I've had the toys and the feeling goes away so quick.
Like right after you get
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
It is
Like,
so
what's next?
anticlimactic.
And you just feel so empty, especially like if at that time I was single and I had a cool apartment, waterfront, the car, and I just was depressed and lonely, and
That's because I heard a guy say it one time: success without significance leads to emptiness.
Yep. I definitely felt
That's
that.
dead on. It's funny you say that.
So.
Dude, thank you so much for being on
Yeah,
the
it was
podcast.
awesome.
It's awesome. Hey, where can people reach you at, or you have a website, or what's your contact info?
How can people find you?
Well, people can find me on Facebook, Stan Gendlin.
He's such a hustler that he'll find you.
That's right.
If he hasn't found you
If
yet,
you're
just
at
wait
all
until this
interested, he'll
afternoon.
know and he'll find you.
He's
you
a Jedi
But you
Knight.
do have some stuff that's going to be coming out here soon, right?
Yes.
Some
I'll be-
educational stuff.
Yep, I have a couple of have a course we created, 8 or 9 week course to basically teach people how to do what I do, and then I'll be speaking at the Find and Flip Summit in Phoenix in January, I believe.
Awesome.
Okay.
So I'll have a lot of stuff coming out online.
And I can tell just people that are watching, because we recorded a couple things together about real estate before, and what I can tell you is the stuff, like I can imagine in that course, if it's anything like the stuff that we recorded before, it's incredibly detailed and like it's not like high level, like, hey, if you do these types of things, it's like, no, here's the letter that you send.
Yep.
Here's the list you buy. Here's the specific websites you go to. It's literally like step by step of how someone can do what you did. Now they have to then have the initiative to actually go out and execute. Yeah. But you give them, I mean, it's I was blown away because I expected less like tactical, just like literally step by step, and I was blown away. Just in the little time that we spent together going through that, it was like, this is most people are guarded, like, oh, I don't want to send out my letters that I send out to potential potential sellers. They're like, I don't want to send that, but he was like, literally like, no, and here, and I'll email you the letter so you can have it, and it was awesome.
Well, most successful entrepreneurs are very abundant-minded, because we know at the end of the day, 1% of people are actually going to do. Even if I tell you how to make $1 million in the next 6 months, 1% of people are actually going to do anything.
Less than that.
And I want to be friends with those 1%.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I'll tell you everything.
Yeah.
So
Because most entrepreneurs realize, like, it's not just a pie.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to show you how to make a pie like mine, and I'll just go make another pie.
That's right.
It's an abundant mindset. That's how we could sit on this thing and talk all day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's awesome. We've been looking forward to having Stan on for a while, and so we're glad we were able to do that this morning. And that is episode 34, the Sales Wolves podcast. Again, I'm Tyler Harris.
Joseph Caldwell.
Stan Gendlin.
And we are the Sales Wolves.